Hi friends, welcome to 1 Minute Math. Today's video is going to be a little bit more than 1 minute because I'm going to give you the full and thorough explanation of how to find an angle using SOH. So these things are called inverse trig functions. Hopefully you remember SOH, which is this fun acronym that just helps us remember sine, cosine, and tangent. That's what the S, the C, and the T stand for in the acronym word SOH. And the O, A, and H represent different sides of my triangle based on what angle I'm looking at. Every right triangle will have a hypotenuse, which is just the longest side of the triangle, a side opposite from that angle, which would be the side that does not touch that angle at all. Like if that angle were my eyeball, the opposite side would be what I'm looking at on the wall. And then the adjacent side, which is the side that touches the angle but isn't the hypotenuse. Adjacent really just means touching or next to. So really the hypotenuse is also an adjacent side to my angle, but we call it the hypotenuse, so he doesn't need another name. Opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse are the three names of the sides of my triangle with respect to any one angle that I'm looking at. So with this in mind, let's say we're given a picture like this, and our goal is to find the angle that's marked. Typically, if you've been doing trigonometry for a little bit, typically you're given an angle number and you're looking for a side. But in this case, I'm given two sides and I'm looking for an angle. And hey, we put a man on the moon. We ought to be able to figure this out, right? So I'm going to approach this problem starting the same way I did if I were looking for a side, which would be to put my perspective at that angle that's marked. Even though here it's marked with an X, it's still marked. It's still identified that this is our angle that we're interested in. And I'm going to label the sides of my triangle as opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is usually pretty easy. It's the longest side, the one that's across from the right angle. Then the opposite is the side that doesn't touch my angle at all. And then the adjacent is by default the one that's left. And I noticed that in this picture, the things I'm interested in, the sides I'm interested in are the O, because it's got a 9 on it, and the A, because it's got a 15 on it, but not the H, because there wasn't anything up there. No numbers, no variables, so we don't care about the H. O and A are the sides that are of interest to me. OA, OA, OA. TOA has the O and the A in it. That's how I decide that tangent is the one that I'm interested in. So my equation, if I were going to write the math sentence that represents this picture, it would be tangent. And hopefully you remember this from finding sides of triangles. The angle is always what goes right next to the sine, the cosine, or the tangent. So in this case, that's going to say x, because my angle is the variable. Tangent x, TOA, is 9, the opposite side, divided by 15, the adjacent side. So now let me paint a little picture here for you. Sine, cosine, and tangent as operators, a button on your calculator. Like, let's consider tangent for a minute. Normally, what I give tangent is an angle. And what it gives me back is a ratio. You're like, well, it usually looks like a decimal. It doesn't really look like a ratio. And a ratio can look like a decimal. A ratio could be a fraction, but it could be a decimal too. So this is how tangent normally works. When we put this little -1 on it, look on your calculator button real quick, and above sine, cosine, and tangent, you should probably see sine with a little -1 on it, cosine with a little -1, tangent with a little -1. You're probably going to have to hit the second button and then the sine, or the second and then the tangent to get that symbol, or shift or control or whatever buttons your calculator has. But if I put that little negative on, let's take this tangent, and we're going to call him inverse tangent. That's how you would pronounce that. It's not tan -1. If you say that, your teacher will probably understand what you mean, but the real words are inverse tangent, or inverse sine, or inverse cosine. You might even know, if you're talking to an older teacher, an older student, arc sine, arc tangent. Putting the three letters ARC in front of the word sine, cosine, or tangent also indicates this kind of like backwards thing we're going to do. All right, so inverse tangent is going to work this way. I'm going to give it a ratio, and it's going to give me an angle. It basically reverse engineers the process for us. We tell it, this is the fraction of sides we have. Can you guess what the angle is? And it does, which is awesome. So let's go back to my problem. I know that the ratio is 9/15, and I'm looking for the angle. So what I'm going to type in my calculator is inverse tangent 9/15. Now, it's really important that that 9 over 15, if some calculators you can enter fractions, other calculators you're going to have to enter parentheses. Do not do, oops, I forgot my inverse. Goodness gracious. Do not do inverse tangent of 9 and then divide that by 15. You have to do the 9 divided by 15. In fact, what you could do is do 9 divided by 15 first and get a decimal for that. In fact, I'll do that for you right now. 0.6. And then type in inverse tangent 0.6, and your calculator will give you a number that looks like it should be an angle. In this case, I got 30.9. That means that this angle here, angle X, is 30.9 degrees. Bam. The beautiful thing about these problems as opposed to the solve for sides problems is that now you're done. You know, normally in a solving for a side of a right triangle problem, you have to type the sine, cosine, or tangent in your calculator, and then you have an additional step of using some algebra to find the x. But now you just type an inverse tangent and you get your answer. Let's do one more example together. All right, here's my angle. 45 is the hypotenuse. It's across from that right angle. It's the longest side. This guy over here is the opposite because it's not touching the angle, and that makes 19a by default. I care about a, it's got a number on it. I care about H, it's got a number on it. I don't care about O. AH, so ka TOA. So ka, cosine. Cosine X equals A over H, 19 over 45. So now I'm going to type in my calculator, inverse cosine, parentheses, 19 divided by 45, and parentheses. Technically, one of them is a parenthesis. It doesn't matter, but now you know that. In case you're ever on Jeopardy, now you know. Inverse cosine, 19 divided by 45, 65 degrees. Just like that. That's my answer. That's the angle here. I hope you found that helpful. Oh, one last point before I close out this video. This is an extremely forgiving process on your calculator. Just for funsies, let's say you forgot that the order of the letters matters and you try and type in your calculator cosine inverse of 45 over 19. If you have your calculator handy, pause this video and give that a try. If not, when you do that, your calculator gives you an error message. It will not compute the inverse cosine of 45 over 19. It knows instinctively that you got the order of the numbers wrong and you have to switch them. And if you think about it, I bet you can convince yourself why that is. I'm not going to give it away for you, though. Think about it for a little bit. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.